Stan Van Gundy, NBC Sports Network, former NBA head coach with Orlando and Miami, joining us on the program. We were talking about this, Stan, with last night with the hockey game. Where do we call games differently depending on how important they are? Or should we call them differently? Late in the game, LeBron fouling out, getting his sixth foul. Does it happen, should it happen, that we call a playoff game or late in a playoff game differently than we do regular season?
Yeah, I actually think you should. I mean, I think that it should reflect the intensity and the emotions of the moment. I think that, if it's a regular season game, it's not as important as Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals, and why wouldn't the call reflect that?
Would you have whistled LeBron for that sixth foul?
No. Look, the thing I didn't like about that, Dan, was that Dwayne Wade did not come off the screen. He went away from the screen, and so the reason that Lance Stevenson ended up tripping over LeBron is he got faked by Wade, went the wrong way, and backed up into the screen and tripped. Now, I don't think LeBron was totally set. Had Wade come off the screen and the same thing happened, then I would have been okay with the foul call. But as it was, the screen really was not part of the play, and I didn't like the call.
What about flopping? I asked yesterday the poll question to our audience, is it smart or is it soft that you see players do that?
No, it's both. It's both. Look, the only reason guys flop is because it works. As soon as it quits working, it'll go away. Forget all the fines and all of those things. Forget all of that because they're minimal to these guys. When it stops working, see, if the referees were left to their own devices, which they're not, the league office, prescribes how they're going to be graded and things. Left to their own devices, I think veteran referees would take care of the flopping instantaneously. They'd simply quit giving those guys calls, even if they did get fouled. If they exaggerated it, time after time, they simply wouldn't give them the call, and the behavior would disappear. The problem is the league office wants the foul called, even if the guy exaggerates it, so they know how they're going to get graded, so they can't take care of the action. I think that those veteran referees would take care of that in a heartbeat if the league just said, you know what, we want to get rid of flopping. You guys take care of it. Believe me, they'd figure it out quickly.
This just in, LeBron James, David West, Lance Stevenson all fined $5,000 for violating the league's anti-flopping rule in Game 4.
Well, there you go. So they got 3 out of the about 12 or 15 we saw, right, Dan? I mean, I've been amazed by that the whole time. I mean, that's the first time, I believe, that the Heat were penalized for it the entire season. I don't know sometimes what the league office is watching, but it's not the same game the rest of us are watching. Because if you put it to the fans, we could have come up with another dozen fines for that game.
He's Stan Van Gundy, NBC Sports Network, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. I wondered about this. What if you penalize somebody for flopping by giving the other team a 5-on-4 advantage for, say, 2 minutes?
That'd be unbelievable. It was funny. I did a coaching clinic up in Montreal right near the end of the hockey regular season, and a friend of mine from up there took me to a Canadiens game against Washington. And, sitting there watching the power plays, I was thinking, that's what we need in basketball right there, And you're right. Okay, you flop, power play, 5-on-4 for 2 minutes. Anything like that would stop all that stuff. So yeah, I'm all for that, Dan. Let's get a campaign going on that.
Game 5 tonight will be predicated on what?
I think 2 things. I think the pace of the game. If Miami can get the pace going like they did in Game 3 and get out in the open floor, I don't think Indiana can combat that. But on the other side, it will be to see if Miami can at least find a little bit of an answer to Indiana's inside game, at least contain them a little bit more, get Roy Hibbert down to, say, 14 or 15 points and 8 rebounds, maybe 4 offensive rebounds instead of the 6.5 he's averaging. I think those will be the 2 things that I'm looking for.
Yeah, when Ray Allen's your leading rebounder, you're not rebounding well, and that was the case in Game 4.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, Chris Bosh can't average 3 rebounds a game. I don't want to hear any more excuses or anything else. Chris Bosh has been a good rebounder in his career in the NBA. I know he's outsized and has given up strength and the whole thing. Just get in the battle and fight. I haven't seen that out of Chris Bosh in this series. I think he's back down from the fight, and he needs to change that.
Is Dwayne Wade getting the reputation as a dirty player?
I had somebody ask me that a couple of weeks ago. I don't think Dwayne's ever been a dirty player. And I say that, obviously, I'm a bit biased because he won a lot of games for me my 2 years in Miami, but I had to coach against him for 5 years. There were times I thought Dwayne flopped, but I never thought of him as a dirty player. Look, I think when you get into this kind of intensity in an Eastern Conference Finals, you get deep in the playoffs, there's going to be a lot of emotions, and guys will certainly go over the line at times maybe and retaliate for things like that. But I don't think Dwayne Wade is a dirty player by any stretch of the imagination.
I know you know this firsthand, but when I saw Vinny Del Negro get fired, I knew he was going to get fired because Chris Paul wanted his own guy in there if he's going to stay with the Clippers. But the NBA celebrates the individual, not necessarily the team. The one team they could celebrate is the Spurs, and nobody wants to see the Spurs or talk about the Spurs. So it's about the individual. It's a dangerous, dangerous precedent that we have because coaches are expendable. If a player who's making, 5 times the amount the coach is, if not more, says, I just don't want you in there, did Vinny Del Negro deserve to get fired?
Well, no, clearly he didn't deserve to get fired. That's the best 2 seasons they've had in the history of the franchise with Vinny. But look, I mean, organizations make those decisions, and look, players all the time, Dan, will have ideas, demands, whatever you want to call them, but the organization decides which way they're going to go. And I do know this, it won't work if the coach's job depends on the players liking him. The coach's job should depend on one thing and one thing only, and that's results. And if you're the right kind of player, if you're a great competitor, that's all you should care about is you want the coach that can help you and your team play the best basketball. When it gets away from that, it's not going to work. I mean, it's not, look at the teams that we have now. It's not the way they do things in Miami. It's not the way they do things in Indiana. It's certainly not the way they've done things in San Antonio. And those are the most successful franchises right now in our league. So why would you want to go to another model?
Before I let you go, this was a question we had last week. Would you rather have Joakim Noah or Dwight Howard?
Look, I'm going to take Dwight Howard over every big guy in this league, and I think 30 general managers would agree with me on that. Joakim Noah is a good player. Roy Hibbert's a good player. Marc Gasol is a very good player. I'll take Dwight Howard over all of them, and if you put them out there on the open market and it's equal access to any of them, there's going to be 30 people who want Dwight Howard first. He's still the most talented big guy in this league. He's a great, great player. Certainly his image has taken a hit. But he's the best big man in this league.
Have we seen the best of Dwight Howard, though, Stan?
I hope not. He was playing at a very high level before his injury a year ago here. There was nothing to indicate that he was on any kind of decline. I still think he can get better. I think he wants to get better. He wants to have more of an offensive role. I hope we haven't seen the best of him.
And I'm also looking at that scenario with the Lakers. If I'm Dwight Howard, I have to look at it and say, okay, money aside, do I want to be going to a team or be a part of a team that can be a championship team? You're not going to win a championship in L.A. anytime soon. You can go to Houston for a little less money and be a part of a younger team and have a nucleus there that you grow with, and you don't have to be the main guy. You got some other stars on that team. What would you do?
Well, see, as far as what he should do, I think number one is he's got to get away by himself, not listening to any of his advisors or anyone else, and decide what's important to him. What's going to make him happy? Is it a better chance to win a championship? Is it the city he lives in? Is it money? Whatever it is, he needs to decide on his own. I would say, from my knowledge of Dwight, he wants to be the main guy, though, wherever he goes. He wants to win a championship, certainly, but he wants to do it as the main guy. He wants to be the guy that leads a team to a championship. He doesn't want to be the second option or the third option. He wants to be the guy. Where that ends up taking him, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not going to be L.A. anytime soon.
Well, not with Kobe there,
No.
And I think he realizes that. And I'm as interested as anybody to see the decision he makes here in the off season. Again, my hope is Dwight, I think in the past, Dan, has spent a lot of time listening to a lot of other people. He's a very nice guy. He wants to please people. And I think sometimes he's done too much of that. I hope at some point before the decision, he gets away on his own and really thinks about what's going to make him happy. If he finds that place and really gets to where he's happy, I think we'll see great, great basketball from him again.
Always great to talk to you, Stan. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Stan Van Gundy, NBC Sports Network, also NBC Sports Radio basketball analyst.